So, first and foremost, Happy New Year. This is Stoppage Time FC. Remember, Stoppage Time Football Club is the Facebook group. If you're watching this, you should already be subscribed with notifications on. Share with a friend, tell a friend. So we come off this great World Cup, and now we're back into club football. It's early January. The transfer has not really gotten started yet. It's not really the halfway point in the leagues. What are we going to talk about? I was like, I don't know what we're going to talk about today on this show.
There's nothing to talk about.
And then the U.S. men's national team said, hold on, my friend. As our Lee Corso said, we have something for you. So I'm going to play the quarterback, the deep line playmaker role, because I want Joe and Zach to have the bulk of the time with this one. So I'm going to go to Zach. Zach, just kind of, if you can give the cliff notes, which I don't know if you can really give the cliff notes on this story, but try to inform what's going on, and then we're going to get to it.
All right. Well, let's do the, like you said, cliff notes version. So this is when you don't read the book in high school and you need to pass the exam. So I'm going to give you the highlights and hope that we have enough information for you to grasp what's going on. So basically, a report came out that Greg Berhalter, the I won't say current United States men's national team coach because his contract is expired, was being blackmailed while in Qatar over an incident that happened between he and his wife. Now, like Ronnie and I have said, and Joe as well, we're thinking this is something recent, right? So some sort of domestic violence, Ray Rice all over the news. Then it comes out a little bit more details when Greg releases his official statement, basically saying that he was being blackmailed over an incident that happened in 1991. Now, let me say that again for you that didn't hear me. 1991. I was 4 years old when this event took place. And essentially, at age 18, he and, at the time, his girlfriend were out at a bar. They were drinking. They got into an argument, and he kicked her. Now, from what it sounds like, this was not a, she's on the ground, repeated kicking kind of incident. Like, this is a one-off kind of kick. Again, no excuses, domestic violence, no, just no. However, they ended up breaking up. He went to counseling, grew as a person. They reconciled not even a year later with the support of all their friends and family. And they've been married for the better part of 25 plus years. And so, he's got this blackmail incident over something that his wife, the one who is the assaultee, I guess you would say, has come to terms with, accepted, and moved on
long ago,
and she's fine with it. So why is this getting brought up? And then we're hearing rumblings here and there, and then we see a tweet late last night saying, oh, this is about to get a whole lot more interesting, breaking news tomorrow. And so we're all glued to the phones, like refresh, just waiting for it to come. Lo and behold, something in my entire life never thought would happen. I think Joe was the one who said this. It reminds me of a club level youth league kind of stunt. Gio Reyna, his parents, Claudio, a well-decorated U.S. men's national team player.
Former captain of the men's national team.
Yeah, that's also very important. And his wife are the ones who leaked said information. Now, Gio's mom was roommates with Greg's wife while they were at USC?
UNC.
UNC.
They were Tar Heels together, where Greg also went to school.
So she decided that because her baby boy was treated poorly and unfit in Qatar, that they are going to in turn blackmail Berhalter and his family and drag his name through the mud for what? For something that was already hashed out, was already over with and done and dusted at Qatar, So it's about the most Bush League childish thing I've ever seen, and it's not something you would expect out of parents of a grown adult child playing at the highest level of sports.
Joe, I want to kick it over to you. This is it's like a Hallmark, like Lifetime. And sometimes they do the flashback to something from like 30 years ago, some small scene that comes back up later in the movie. That was this. And as Zach put it, it's such a like soccer mom gone wild thing to do.
100%.
Joe, I'll kick it to you. I guess I'm letting you guys have the floor tonight on this one. Joe, what will you give me? I guess your thoughts. This is like your initial thoughts, and then we'll kind of go back and forth with this.
So my initial thoughts too were the same as you guys, where I was like, okay, this is something that happened recent, and then last night, I don't have the tweet in front of me, but somebody tweeted out that I found I shared with you guys, was saying that just saying that Gio Reyna's mom was roommates with Berhalter's girlfriend at the time and now wife. So as soon as that tweet came out and you start thinking about what might be coming down the line, it started making a lot of sense, and puzzle pieces started to come together with who would have leaked this information during the World Cup. And it's just, it's incredibly sad to me that this is where it's come to, because the two families, the Reynas and the Berhalters, have been connected since Greg and Claudio were 7-8 years old. They played club soccer together as boys. They played high school together. They won titles in high school together in New Jersey. They played on the national team together for so many seasons. They were very close. Greg's known Gio since he was a little kid. And for the Reynas, whose timeline in this whole thing does not line up, in my opinion, because her statement and Claudio's statement supporting what she said says that they found out about all this after Greg went and talked about the Gio situation at a summit that happened after the World Cup was done. And they're claiming that Gio's name being dragged through the mud through that was Greg's fault, and that that's what was their frustration, and that's what caused them to do what they did. But that doesn't really line up, because we know that some of this stuff happened during the World Cup. Mm-hmm. And some of the blackmailing stuff was going on during it, because they even said in their statements that they sent a message to Ernie Stewart, who's the president of the U.S. Soccer Federation, that they'd like that kind of stuff to stop and to be squashed. So their timelines on when they said things and who they spoke to and just doesn't match up. And it's really disappointing that a former U.S. national team captain chose to do this to a guy who I think we all can agree that has faced a lot of criticism for the way he's handled the World Cup and decisions he made, and rightfully so. But to then bring up something from 30 years ago and to pretty much insult someone who had nothing to do with it, which was Greg's wife. All of this comes back to she was the one that was assaulted at the time and had all the trauma from that situation that she's come to grips with and worked through, and to get brought back up in such a public way is just honestly, it disgusts me that they decided to do that, to people who they claim to be friends with and be close with, and to say that they didn't expect this information to come to light and all that is just bullshit, because you were angry that Greg's comments, who were supposed to be kept private, weren't private anymore. They became public knowledge. So you've now done the exact thing that you're pissed off at Greg about. And instead of having a conversation with the man and talking to him, you guys decided to do this kind of stuff. Like, it's just so petty and so childish. And it's something that is a huge problem in US youth sports in general. This is not something that's just strictly related to soccer in the US. This is a US sports parents issue where they feel entitled because they pay a certain amount of money for their child to play on a team, that they have every right to say and do whatever the hell they want, and you don't. Your child is a part of the team, and you don't have rights to do things like this. And it's just screams of entitlement, and it's disgusting. That's my initial feelings.
So here's my question, both of you. From what I've read, not about this incident, but I know there was some questions about Gio Reyna's, his fitness and his health leading up to the tournament. So there was this to the side. There was questions whether he was going to be, what part he would play, if any, just over that. So I guess Zach and then Joe, obviously nobody could see this coming. But does Gio Reyna have any, I mean, this is his parents doing, so I can't really say. Does he have any right to feel aggrieved in any way over his quote unquote treatment to the World Cup? Because it sounded like to me, talking to you guys, this wasn't like, oh, he's going to be starting every game of the World Cup and now all of a sudden he's not playing. So I guess I'm trying to figure what is his beef when this was kind of in question when the tournament started?
Joe and I, we talked about this prior to the World Cup roster announcement, was that we didn't see how Gio could start when he really hadn't even started for Dortmund prior to the rosters even being announced. And he really didn't start even leading up to the break. He was getting back into match fitness. He was getting, building everything back up. So at least from my perspective, I was going into Qatar assuming he was going to be number 12. He was going to be the first guy that came on the pitch, when the first substitution was made, it was going to be Gio. Now, and then, fast forward everything that happened at the camp prior to that, which led to him only playing 2 matches over the course of the entire tournament.
You got 8 minutes of group stage play and then a little bit in the knockout round.
Yeah. But my issue is, where does he fit into this? Is this something that was just the parents doing? Because let me just go back real quick. At any point, I will walk through hellfire and brimstone for my daughter. So I get the instinctual, like the instincts, the parental nature, to defend your child. However, if you are ever at a point where you feel you need to defend your actions and justify them, you are already wrong. If you are the guilty party and you need to justify it, you are wrong. Period. So where does Gio fit into this? Is he an accessory after the fact? Is he, a guilty party as well? Did he instigate it? Did he push it? Did he want for this to happen? I don't know. And that's where I'm kind of torn with this. Like, I don't know where to place Gio now. Because if he is an accessory after the fact, then, well, this, as the saying goes, the sins of the father are not sins of the son. I can't fault Gio for something that his parents did if he isn't, akin to this. So I don't know if that information will ever come out or not, or if it does, if it's the truth. My biggest issue and question behind all of this is, why now? Why now? Because Triple G and his coaching staff's contract expired December 31st. He is officially no longer the U.S. men's national team head coach. Now, that isn't to say that he couldn't sign a new contract and get extended.
Right.
But they did not renew his contract. And this wasn't a situation where they renewed his contract and then this information came out in hopes of stopping that from happening. Contract expired. There was no news on what the U.S. Soccer Federation was going to do as far as the coaching staff. So what do you gain from this? What is achieved here other than a lot of unnecessary hardship for a lot of people? And I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's disgusting. It's embarrassing. It's just, people who are in their 50s and 60s should not be acting like, this right here is worse than what, okay, not worse, because I don't condone domestic violence, but it's damn near worse, because you're a grown adult who's supposed to know better. At 18, you make mistakes. And while I will never justify domestic violence, 18-year-olds make mistakes. And he atoned for those. He made the necessary steps to get better as a human being. And it's wrong. I feel gross. I think that's the best way to describe it.
Joe, what do you, because Zach just laid out the circumstances, Greg Berhalter's contract, the coaching staff contract is up. I guess kind of, if you can, and it's not a good place to be right now. If you are the Rayners, and I think Zach hit on point, specifically Gio Reyna, what does this do for him? And if you are him, why? Is it, as you talked about, is it simply I'm embarrassed because I didn't play like I was supposed to? Is this, take me kind of, Joe, if you can. I know that's a tough place to be.
Mm-hmm.
What is the end game for Gio Reyna? Not necessarily his mother and father, but for him.
Gio is in a really difficult spot right now, because if his parents did all of this without his knowledge and without his consent, and he had no idea that they were even speaking to people behind it, behind everybody's back at that point, it really puts him in a really shitty spot, because that's your parents and you love them and you're going to support them and you will love that they have your back. But at the same time, they've now put you in a really difficult spot, because what are your options? Say, I love my parents, I appreciate them, and I agree with them? Or do you say, I had nothing to do with what they said, and I wish this didn't happen, and I'm still committed to the U.S. men's national team, and separate yourself from them? But then that's your family. So he's in a really crappy spot. But if he was complicit, and I talked to my parents about how frustrated I was and how messed up it was, and I wanted them to come to my aid essentially and say something, that is a completely different conversation. And if he's participating actively in this drama, then to me, no matter how good he is, see you later for a while, buddy. We have no room for that kind of drama and that BS here. We are trying to build something for the 2026 World Cup where we are hosting and we are expecting to perform much better than we have ever in the past. We don't have time for this. So it really depends on how much information he was aware of. And to his credit, he owned up to his bad attitude and his lack of effort and training. He apologized to the group, and it should have been squashed and done right then and there, and nothing else had to be said. And then Berhalter decided to speak about it in a public forum that was off the record. We all, as adults, should know better. Nothing is off the record. So that was on him 100%. He shouldn't have said shit at that thing for sure. However, the Reinas have now doubled down on the drama and the nonsense by doing what they did and releasing and commenting to the U.S. Federation about an incident that happened so long ago. So it's just, it should have never got to this point because Gio owned up to it. He said, I screwed up. I apologize. I'm going to do better. And everybody in the camp, the players and the coaching staff all unanimously said it was squashed and over and done with. So it should have been kaput right then.
So let me ask this real quick. And Ronnie, I want your input as well. Okay, so in my opinion, he has to pick a side because if he's complicit and he's the one who spurred this on, that truth will never come out ever. We will never get that. So he has, in my opinion, he has to pick a side. He either has to double down and dig into the trenches with his folks, or he has to separate himself. But if he toes the line and walks down the middle and doesn't do anything, that's almost worse. This reminds me of like a Hakim Ziyech Morocco situation where he's not going to be involved with the national team for a while, unless he picks a side. But that's just me. You guys, what do you think?
I think, to me, as hard as it would be, if he's involved, it's better for him, I believe, now, separating, especially from his parents being who his parents are. His father is U.S. national team legend. His father clearly is still connected to the U.S. men's national team in some way. I think he has to, I think whatever he does, Zach, he's got to be truthful. Because if he's not truthful, not only is we talking about the U.S. men's national team, I mean, his career has kind of been start over in Germany because of the injuries. But if there's more layers to this, professionally, who's going to take you? Probably, I mean, and I don't want to say this with disrespect, you're almost and could he even do that? And Joe and Zach, you all follow U.S. men's national team and MLS closer. You can't even, could he even come back to the MLS as if nothing happened? Right? Could he?
I think he'll catch on somewhere regardless of what happens in the fallout of this. I think he's too talented not to. But it's definitely not going to be ideal, and he's going to have to work on things to gain trust back. I don't know, Joe.
He's going to carry this with him for a while, and unfortunately, it's not his doing. This is the adults in his life that are supposed to be looking out for him. Because as a 20-year-old, you are not quite. You're grown, but you're not grown yet. So the adults in his life that were supposed to be looking out for him have all failed him dramatically in this situation, and it's now turned into this mess that he's not going to be able to walk away from for a while. It's going to carry around with him. He's going to have that label of a kid who's got a difficult family to deal with. We've all seen that in youth sports. We all played sports growing up. We all know the kid who had the mom or dad who was difficult to deal with. We've all seen that on the basketball court, on the soccer pitch, the baseball diamond, whatever sport you was playing. We have all seen them. We know them personally. We've seen them. And it's not fun. The coaching staff cannot stand it. I know so many coaches. I've had discussions with my daughter's coaches, my friends who are coaches, and they told me how many stories they have of parents who have done the exact same thing that Gio's family has done. So it's going to stick with him for a while. I think he's still going to be playing regularly for Dortmund. He is super talented. So talent usually outweighs drama in the end with clubs, because they think that they can deal with it. They'll look past a few things. It didn't happen here, so we can, right. And Dortmund just tends to pump out talent anyway, so they stay for a while. Aside from Marco Reus, they play for a couple of years and then they move on. So eventually I'm sure he's going to get a move somewhere, and I'm sure it's not going to be back to the MLS or some a smaller league in Europe. He'll move to a sizable club, but it's going to be something that's going to carry around with him, and he's going to have to answer questions about it all the time.
So now, for the USSF, Berhalter's contract obviously was expired. All this happens, and you all can tell me: what was more likely to happen before this? Was it more likely Berhalter was going to get another contract, or was it more likely he was going to get moved on? So let's kind of start there.
The vibe I was getting was they were probably going to move on anyway. Okay. There was discussions about a contract going forward. Maybe not a 4-year contract through next World Cup cycle, but maybe through the Copa, that they will likely be involved in. But it is rare for any national team head coach of big giant soccer nations and small little ones to get 2 World Cup cycles. Usually you get one, and unless you win or are a big name, you usually get 1 cycle, and that's about it. So I felt like they were probably going to move in a different direction. I don't think this should influence it one bit, but of course it's probably going to at this point. They're not going to make a decision at this point until after the internal investigation. They hired an agency to look into everything and all the claims and talk to everybody about what's been going on. So they're not going to do anything until that has been settled. And going into the January camp, there's a couple of friendlies coming up for the U.S. national team, and one of the assistant coach, I think it was Ray Hudson, is going to be taking over for the interim for right now, mostly because, like Zach said, the contract for Greg has expired, and they're still looking at going forward what the move is.
So I'm on the complete opposite end of Joe. I felt that he was going to get renewed. I don't know if it would have been a full World Cup cycle renewal, but I felt like it would have been a year or two to continue to grow, to see how the team improved. The reason I say that is because of the last thing that Joe said. The U.S. Soccer Federation is conducting an investigation into this incident. Why? For what? He's no longer the U.S. coach. It was 25, 30 years ago. What does conducting their own investigation do? Mm-hmm. Unless you were thinking, hey, let's renew him, but let's make sure we do our due diligence on this to make sure all the information is factual before we do it, so we don't get ourselves into any type of bad situation. So I was trending in the other direction. And I said this numerous times. I don't think Greg should be the head coach of the team, but not for the reasons that are recently in the news. I just don't think he's the right fit for the job. I don't think he's the right for progression and everything that the U.S. needs for a good run at 2026, a more successful run at 2026. So I don't know. My heart was telling me it was a renewal. I think no matter what, I think they have to move on. Even
I think
though
it's late at this point.
yeah. And truthfully, like, I don't know what ties Claudio still has to the national team. I last I heard he was at Atlanta United, right? In some sort of director level.
The Reynas in their statements said that they count Ernie Stewart as a close personal friend and Brian McBride as a still close personal friend. And that's who they were communicating their displeasure with, both of which, obviously Stewart is in charge of the U.S. soccer. So they are still allegedly claiming to be very close with that person and have a relationship outside of the soccer world.
Then in my eyes, either the U.S. Soccer Federation, i.e. Ernie Stewart and Brian McBride, need to distance themselves publicly from the Reynas, or they need to step down, because now there's a conflict of interest. And you all know I love Brian McBride. He's probably one of my favorite players ever. And I think he is a name that is getting, I think people are grasping. I think the Reynas are grasping for any name to help keep their
credibility
afloat. I don't know if they legitimately talk to any of them.
That's the thing. That's what they're saying. It doesn't necessarily, we don't know how honest and how truthful they are being with everything.
So I guess that was going to be my question. So let's go with Berhalter steps down. Gio Reyna he takes whatever penalty, punishment, however you want to phrase it. I guess my question, as Zach brought this up, is number one, should Gio Reyna be, for lack of a better word, banned from the national team? Number two, how is Ernie Stewart allowed to pick the next coach? Because if Mama Reyna has Ernie Stewart on the main line, and Gio, as you all talked about, is this tremendous talent, are the Reynas do they have influence to pick this next coach?
Claudio might as well name himself.
That's the next layer to this, is that Ernie Stewart's name is all up in this as like Zach said, a conflict of interest. He is too close to both parties at this point to be objective, I think. And you can't allow him to be in charge of deciding who the next coach is. So that is another piece of this that we haven't gotten to yet until just now, was he's personally involved in this as well. Not just as the head of the U.S. soccer, but these are his friends too. So, like you said, how can he be trusted at this point to make the decision going forward on who's going to be the next coach, who's going to be the next manager, and all that? So that's a very important piece too. So I think they are also trying to save face as far as the investigation goes. I think if they're, like Zach said, it makes sense that they would be looking at maybe a renewal with him if they're going to do all this investigation. But I also think they're trying to publicly make sure they're looking looking the right way, that they're trying to do everything to investigate a domestic violence issue and cover all their bases and make sure that in the public opinion they've done their due diligence regardless of the outcome. But
Zach talked about the investigation. So am I to, and you all maybe have to track back for me really quick, is the investigation because technically when this happened, he was the coach? technically. I mean,
Even
it's
though
all
when the allegations got brought to their attention, he was still the head coach, allegedly, because they apparently said this during the World Cup. So I would imagine that the investigation was triggered shortly after from the U.S. Federation statement. Once the information was brought to their attention, that's when they started looking into the matter and hiring an outside agency to conduct an investigation into what happened, even though the incident itself that is being looked at happened
is back in
30 years ago.
Was Greg even in the national team at that point?
Probably maybe the youth ranks, maybe, but he
Yeah.
wasn't part of the senior team as an 18-year-old. He was still in college. So it's just
I don't know if and I'm not trying to steal your thunder, Ronnie. But I just let's get it out of the way. Who's the next coach?
I saw somebody on social media in one of the U.S. men's national team groups lobbying for Poch.
Gross. Next.
Don't let Julio hear you say that, bro. Julio, if you're watching, that's your boy.
So I'm not familiar with like the American coaching pipeline. You all can tell me if there's a hot name in there. The guy who comes to mind, if you want to step outside, of America, is Zach's guy.
Oh, okay, you want to talk about a mutiny? The U.S. soccer fans hate this man for the way he treated Christian.
They absolutely do. And I'm pretty sure that would probably strike his name from the records. But that guy, the guy we're speaking about is Thomas Tuchel for the audience. Mm-hmm. He's really good in these tournament cup situations.
Although,
go ahead. You're more familiar with him than I am. You can speak to.
I mean, the problem with Christian at Chelsea was that Thomas had lots of options. He doesn't really if and this is no way do I think this would ever happen. If TT got named, I don't see a whole lot of options other than Christian out there on the left wing. So that would alleviate some of the issues that US fans have with him not playing Christian.
Or playing him out of position.
Or playing him out of position as a 9.
Or a wing back.
Joe?
Love you, buddy.
So that you're talking about available, has done this in tournaments and cups before. And unlike having to deal with the high price players at a PSG, at a Chelsea, I mean, if you really want to go off the beaten path and find somebody,
it's hard to find a candidate out there, and for me at this point, so if you're looking to keep it within the U.S. men's national team family and the U.S. Pipeline, then one of your best candidates is over at Leeds right now. And he's in a really good, high-profile Premier League team.
For now.
And I would have a hard time seeing him leave club football right now for the men's national team. But that would be somebody that you would be definitely looking at and having conversations about because of his pedigree in Europe and clearly a US guy. So that would be a name to look at. I don't know if he would leave Leeds for the national team because he seems to really like club football. And so we'll see.
I think if Jesse Marsch is available, he is, and you want someone with U.S. ties already, then he is 1A. I think he is your first choice. Just to what Joe said, his pedigree, his resume, his experience in Champions League and Europa League and just knockout games and cups and things like that is far more experienced than most. I don't know how much longer he's going to be the head coach at Leeds because Leeds aren't exactly in flying form. I can think of probably 5 names off the top of my head including Jesse Marsh, that are probably on the radar. One, I know a lot of U.S. fans would probably mutiny as well, would be Tata Martinez, the coach who just got fired from El Tri. He's coached in the MLS, like he knows U.S. players, so he's familiar with them. He's got a lot of experience, so I don't think he would be a terrible choice. I think his first name is Thomas Frank.
Or at Brentford.
Brentford would be
Frank. Yep.
So he is a also underrated kind of fantastic choice. I think Thomas Frank in my eyes is a lot like Graham Potter is. Not very outspoken, very, very quiet, but tactically very, very smart. He's everything I think fans want Greg Berhalter to be, but he's not. So that's 4. And who was my you could throw in the Tuchels, the Pochettinos. I mean, you could knock on Tite's door. He's not coaching Brazil anymore, but I just.
So let me ask you this for two guys who follow this closely, and would you prefer it to be someone? Because I think as Joe and you all both have hit some of the issues of some of the old boy network and people are buddy and this person knows this person. Even if it's not a foreign manager like a Tuchel, does it need to be somebody? Does it need to be, for lack of a better word, does it need to be an outsider? Does it need to be that no one is familiar with?
Maybe not familiar with, but I think it needs to be somebody who's not played in that era with that group of guys at this point or been involved with them. I think it needs to be somebody that doesn't have close ties with the 90s players who came up in the mid 90s and all know each other. And there's been too much of this. It's been like this for a long time with the guys in charge of U.S. soccer and the men's national team, where they have that old guy network together. I think it needs to be somebody from outside the box, and that would be a better fit, because right now the culture and the drama that's been going on just is too much, and I think they need to start fresh. And you have 4 years to get ready for the biggest cup in our nation's history at this point, with a young group of players, whether you think they're good or not, whether you think the U.S. actually has a shot at competing or not. This is a big deal for U.S. soccer in 2026. So whoever you decide to go with, you need to get this next hire right. And I think it needs to be somebody who's not involved in this mess that's been going on the past month or so.
Another name I forgot that I would reach out that is not tied to the U.S., who I think would be fantastic, is Julian Nagelsmann, Leipzig's coach. I think he would be a fantastic, if you could lure him away from club football. The problem is, being able to lure some of these coaches away from club football is tough. I'm lobbying. This wouldn't happen for 2026, but I don't know what gods and what sacrificial lambs we have to do. But when it's time for him to leave, and when he does leave, it will happen eventually, Joe. The U.S. national team, they need to be blowing up Pep's phone, because that would be the ultimate spot for him. There is no pressure whatsoever. He could coach the way he wants to coach. And truthfully, there is no one better.
I'm going to tell you, that's the home run swing right there. You're putting everything you got into that one when and if that happens, because his current contract goes through 2025, I believe, was his extension just signed for. So he'll be in City blue until then. And likely will be that same kind of scenario for him. They'll look at it again around the same time. If they decide to extend, it'll be like a short 2-year thing. And see how he's feeling. But if and when he comes available, every team, including the U.S., should be sending a pitch his way.
I think if you're the U.S., if you're a U.S. men's national team, you become a pseudo City fan this year and next year.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is just my opinion. If City wins the Champions League in the next 2 years, if they win it this year, they win in 2023. Yes, his contract is till 2025, but I think he absolutely could be like, you know what? The project is now finished. I've won the league.
I think that's all he's waiting on. I think he has dedicated himself to the City organization and the family there, and he is refusing to leave until he finally gets it and proves, not that he has anything left to prove, but it's probably more for himself.
Works here. It's so to me, but that would be I hadn't thought about that. If you're gonna take a swing at it,
in the words of J. Historian Ham, back up the Brinks truck. Like, whatever it takes, give him 10 houses spread out all over the country. I don't care. And then Pep can recruit Cristiano Ronaldo Jr. because Cristiano Jr. was born in San Diego, therefore qualifies as a dual national.
He was born in San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
which is that dude is a whole show to himself. But anyway, continue.
I'm just like that. If you ever want to get out of mediocrity, and you want to establish something for the future, there is no better way to do it than to bring in, arguably, sorry, Sir Alex, the greatest coach and the greatest coaching mind of all time. And I can't think of a better way to completely reshape the way the USSF and the USMNT, even the women's national team, are run than to bring in a guy who has all that experience with City now and the way that they run their entire organization, plus his plethora of experience at Bayern and Barca and his playing career. Like, there is no better candidate ever for the U.S. team.
And just piggyback on that point, like you said, 2026, you are hosting, as Joe put it, the biggest. Not only is it the biggest World Cup in the history of the United States, it literally will be the biggest World Cup in the history of the tournament. 48 teams.
Spread out across 3 countries.
3 countries. This is the thing. And to Zach's point, as Zach so eloquently put, yes, you need the guy with the tactics and the X and O. You need that. But you need a front man. You need somebody that you can put on these Nike ads a year in advance. This is the guy that's going to lead us. And respectfully, you can't roll out whoever the best coach in the MLS is right now and say, hey, that's the dude that's leading our team in the biggest tournament in the history of the Cup. You cannot.
That's what they wanted Jurgen to be until 2014 happened. They wanted to bring in the hot foreign guy that has all this experience in big clubs and, very, very photogenic and good on TV and all that kind of stuff. And that just didn't work out that way, the way they wanted to in that situation.
I think it did. The results weren't there, but the U.S. wouldn't be the team it is today without Jurgen Klinsmann, because Jurgen was the spearhead for recruiting dual nationals. So you would not see Yunus Musa. You would not see, all these guys that qualify for different countries in the squad. And so, like, yeah, his results weren't there, but it helped shape the landscape for what the team is today. I really think that 2026, and I know this is outlandish, but you have to treat 2026 as an audition tape for Pep.
And that's the thing with Pep. The knock on him is that he takes ready-made clubs and just makes them a little bit better, because he's only managed the elite of the elite and the best. He's never built a club from the ground up. He's never worked with anybody but the best players. And that argument is stupid, because City was in a really bad spot until he came in. They're in fourth. They were trending the wrong way with a bunch of old players, and he turned the ship around. So that's not entirely accurate. So coming into the U.S. national team picture and growing the game in one of the biggest countries in the world, and changing the culture of U.S. soccer would be a very big challenge, and might be something that he would be interested in. To kind of, because he probably gives zero fucks about what anybody says about him in the media when it comes to that kind of stuff, because he's Pep. But that might be like, hey, I've done this. I've done everything I could at the club level. I've won everything I could. Here's a new challenge, a new opportunity to really grow myself and my brand and all that kind of stuff.
Did you just steal Cristiano's speech that he just gave in Saudi Arabia? Because it sounded eerily similar to that.
Oh, I've won everything in Europe.
Yep.
In club football, yes, but not in international football, buddy. Sorry, not sorry. So, and Ryan, I see you in the comments about Pep's family, and I know exactly who you're referencing, my friend. Wink, wink.
What's his comment?
He said Pep's family would be in the US too, with 3 of the eye emojis. Referencing.
Yeah. That's dirty ball game.
Referencing.
Ronnie, you know about that?
No, I don't. Can it be said on camera or no?
I mean, it's pure conjecture and rumors.
Okay.
Joe, fill him in.
Pep's daughter is a looker.
Yes, I have seen her. I have seen her. I remember there was a Dele Ali situation.
Yes.
May or may not have happened.
Very, very nice pull, Ronnie.
So, but I think as a complete casual USA fan, one, I agree with Joe. Do not send me anybody who played in World Cup 98, please. Or World Cup 2002. Get that out of here. But you need somebody that can excite the country. I think this, while it'll pass, this is one of the things that could sour people on the national team, because it's just unnecessary. So you need someone, I think, who can kind of rally people and say, hey, 2026, we're hosting the biggest tournament in the history of the world. A Pep does that for you.
All right, you ready for this? I'm getting wild now. The one thing that, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, the one thing that hiring Mauricio Pochettino would do, it would get you out of the cycle of U.S. ties. It's a prolific name, which would what is it? I think it's Mel Kiper always says it. He's not the guy, but he's the guy that gets you to the guy. So, or the other reference, they're 2 years away from being 2 years away. I think that's where the team is at. And I think if they want to attract a Pep or a elite area coach, then they have to hire someone if it's not a complete outsider, then it has to be a Jesse Marsh. Has substantial pedigree. You know.
Zach's freezing up.
Not sure if he's still there or not, if he can hear us, but we'll see.
But now I would say this though. Jesse Marsh is probably the guy. I think if you really want to do, hey, he's American. He'll look good on all the ads. He talks it. I don't know what the going rate is for US, what they pay. But even if Leeds gets relegated, Leeds is a relegation candidate in the Premier League, maybe you just go ahead and throw the house at Jesse Marsh, irregardless of what happens, and just say, hey, come back.
Berhalter made 1.2 million, almost 1.3 million a year.
I think Jesse Marsh is definitely the guy that you're looking at to take over in the short end, probably into 2026. But what I don't want to see is them do this whole caretaker shit again, like they did prior to Berhalter taking over. There was a year or so there where it was just like interim, and then when they let Jurgen go and they tried to bring in Bruce Arena again.
I was literally just gonna say, if I see that decrepit fuck anywhere near this team again, I'm done.
Yeah, because I saw in the comments, Ryan also said I wanted Bruce Arena resurgence, and I absolutely do not want that. He needs to be that ship has long sailed to go. Do not screw around again and wait a year to find somebody and do this whole BS and song and dance again with an interim manager from the past. You need to make the right hire, and you need to make it in the next couple of months so we can move forward as a soccer nation and look forward to what should be an awesome celebration of soccer in America in 4 years.
Let me tell you, they better not. They don't delete Bruce Arena's number needs to be deleted out of the U.S. phone book.
Him and Bob Bradley.
Yes, that name too. Absolutely.
And his son.
Michael too.
The only, to kind of piggyback off your caretaker statement, the only non-super elite coach that I would be okay with the U.S. hiring would be their current, I think he's U20, Tab Ramos. Tab's done phenomenal at the youth level. I'm pretty sure he's the U20 coach right now, but
okay.
He former US player, like, yeah, I get it, he still has those ties to the 90s and all that, but Tab's always been different. And the one thing his teams are always known for is playing that free-flowing, stout defense, but can counter and attack well. Not this, let's kick the ball long and hope that our attacking players can counter and do something that we're currently playing.
Just for reference, Tab is the current head coach at Hartford Athletic in the USL Championship.
Okay.
Now, from the U20s, he went to he was a Dynamo coach in Houston and MLS for 2 years, and then he left there after last season, 2 seasons ago, and now he's been at a USL side currently.
He's an interesting name if you want to do the Captain America. And based on what I could accept, if I'm a US fan, I could accept that. But anybody who was friends with the Reynas, the Berhalters, or Ernie Stewart, it's got to be known. Got to be known.
Speaking of 90s players, can we start a petition to get Alexi Lalas off of fucking TV forever?
Who's he on TV for?
Fox.
That sounds about right. Alexi Lawless is still out here.
He's
All the
prevalent.
U.S. soccer stuff
He's
needs to be done through
everywhere.
Clint Dempsey. He's our best commentator.
I liked Landon though. I thought
Deuce and
Landon
Landon do a
was
great
good,
job.
too.
They need it, and Stu Holden also needs to be like reeled back a little bit.
Okay.
Not be featured so much.
Stu and Taylor.
Let me ask you.
Yes, we need some new faces in the commentary world too.
Let me ask you this, and then we're gonna get out of here because it's a really fascinating topic of it's dirty and petty, but then it also leads to this bigger conversation of what do you do next? And I guess my question to Joe and Zach would be: we talked about Jesse Marsh, Tom Ramos. We talked about the super swing for the fence of Pep Guardiola. And I have no idea if he has interest in managing. No idea. You guys can say, no, he's not doing that. Could you throw the house or throw the kitchen sink at Landon and say, Landon, you are the greatest player in the history of this country. You have been the face of U.S. soccer forever. If he has an interest in doing it, could you get him ready now and say,
well, Landon owns the San Diego Wave, or he's the player coach. I'm pretty sure he's coaching the San Diego Wave right now, who are going to be
They're moving up to the MLS, yes.
MLS. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's their current head coach, right?
okay.
I will look that up while you're
Check that.
Yep, I got you.
And then before we go, Ronnie, don't forget, I'm going to share my screen, and I got something for you.
All right, so Joe, why you looking up Landon Donovan? To me, if you're going to do Captain America for 2026, he's about as Captain America as you're going to ever have, if he has an interest in doing it.
In coaching or being in charge?
I don't know if you maybe he might say Landon is really more interested in doing it. Landon takes Ernie Stewart's job.
Looks like he San Diego Sockers, which is a really interesting.
I was thinking Wave.
Wave is the women's team out in San Diego.
Oh, that's right. The better of the two teams.
Exactly. I know he's part of the ownership. I can't find without diving deeper into Wikipedia if he currently plays for them, but I know he's part of the ownership group with them.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, Ronnie, I think if you want a current, like our current generation of players to take over for Ernie, I actually think Tim Howard would be a good fit.
I hadn't thought of that name.
He's probably your best ambassador of the game. He's probably your best ambassador overseas.
He's well respected in Europe and in England with how he played in Everton or for Everton.
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be probably my choice. And again, this is all conjecture because we have no idea if
right.
He would be interested, but yeah, that would be my choice. I don't know about Joe.
I like the Tim Howard choice as well. He's been on TV for a while, and I think he's got great name recognition, and he's a really good person, it seems like, too. And I think he would command the respect of the players and whoever the next manager might be. I think he would be a great person to bring into the executive group of U.S. soccer.
This is going to be I feel like this conversation will be had, especially once we get into the summer. Well, hopefully they're not managerless into the summer. I think that the follow-up move to all this now becomes, not only is it really important, it'd be really interesting the direction, but USF, if you watch the show, you could pay myself, Zach, Joe, we take a nice 6-figure finder's fee, and we'll get it straightened out for you.
Absolutely.
So before we close the show out, Zach is trying to stump me with.
Oh, Joe won't let me. You've disabled participant screen sharing.
I did not disable anything. It says one participant can share multiple.
They're trying to stump me. The technology won't let them.
We can start sharing when someone else.
Here we go. I think I got it.
Okay. Is it letting you know? There we go. Hey.
There.
So let's see. All right, Ronnie. You see that?
Yes.
Choose a group of 5.
Yep. You gotta choose a color.
I choose a color.
Yep.
Yes. Red, blue, green,
blue.
or yellow.
Yep.
Oh my God.
There's 4 teams up there. Who's your instant reaction? This is my first one that I'm like, I'm interested in what that team's got on the pitch.
Okay. So red is disqualified right now because
of Lev.
I don't know who that is, top left corner.
That's Lev Yashin.
Okay. All-time great keeper, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep.
But they got Luis Suarez in. Even though Suarez unbelievable.
Other than yellow, they have probably arguably the best midfield pairing, though.
They absolutely do. Okay. Blue pairing is David De Gea. That's Beckenbauer.
That's Nick Pope.
That's Nick Pope, actually.
Nick Pope.
It's either Nick Pope or Dean Henderson. I think it's Nick Pope.
I think that's Nick Pope.
Wow, who created this monstrosity?
Ryan, our buddy Ryan got this off of Castro's social media.
Ryan, you're mean. Boy, Yaya Toure, Steven Gerrard, and Diego is
spicy.
But they got the by
who is
far
the keeper?
worst keeper.
Who's the keeper for the green?
That's Manuel Neuer.
That
a
is
younger picture of Neuer, yes. Of ski accident fame right now.
I am gonna go with the green line. Neuer at keeper. That's Maldini, right?
Yep.
Okay. Keane and Wesley Sneijder is a good balance in the midfield. And then you got the greatest player of all time up front. I'm going to go with the green side. The only reason I'm not picking the yellow is that I feel like between Modric and Xavi, we have no midfield protection whatsoever.
You have no speed in the midfield whatsoever.
Speed, we're not going to be protected. And Sergio Ramos will absolutely get sent off at some point. So there's that.
Side.
Yeah. He'll get
you got to say the same thing for Luis Suarez then, too.
Luis Suarez.
And Roy Keane, too.
Roy Keane will get sent off.
Blue might be the only one that finishes with 5.
Blue is the only one that will finish with 5 people. I'll still go green. I'll take my chances that Roy's not going to 2-foot tackle Erling Haaland, and it'll be fine.
My first choice was green, but I really struggled with picking red, just because that midfield duo of KDB and Michael Essien with VVD behind them, like that's tough. Suarez, for all of his not pacey up top like striker ability, he's a poacher, and he always puts himself in good positions. So that was my second choice.
Suarez, and we might talk about this in the offseason. His last full season with Liverpool was it might be the greatest season. The greatest non-Messi season of all time. But anyway. But yeah, the red row is tough.
I'll give you one guess who Joe picked.
He picked the red side.
No,
he didn't.
My first thought was yellow because it's the most balanced squad. There's no glaring hole for me. Green, Roy Keane, meh. Plus he's an asshole, so bye.
Yeah, I feel
Blue, your goalkeeper is the worst player of everyone pictured, and it's by a wide margin. So blue, bye. Sorry.
Who is this blue goalkeeper?
Nick Pope. He played for Burnley, and now he's at, I think, Newcastle.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell Ryan, not Ryan, because it's not his fault. Whoever created this, why you randomly threw Nick Pope into this?
Look at the other goalies. They're all top 4, 5 goalies of all time, and then you throw Nick Pope in.
Yeah.
Everybody in this.
It's definitely a weird selection. Like had that been like Thibaut, Courtois, like blue probably would be the selection.
You know what, Zach? You're absolutely. Actually, you're right. I don't know how we have like 20. We have 19. We have there's 20 players on this screen, and somehow Nick Pope got in with these 20.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
19 elite of the elite, and Nick Pope.
And Nick Pope.
And Nick Pope. You know what?
Yellow was my first thought, and then I was also having a hard time not going with green when you arguably have the best forward and best player of all time, one of the best goalies ever, and probably maybe one of the best defenders of all time too. Like that's hard not to choose green too. So that was my other thought.
I'm gonna go green, but if somebody can redo this and replace Nick Pope with anybody better than Nick Pope,
This gave me an idea, so I'm gonna come up with probably 2 or 3 variations of this, and we're gonna do this probably every episode.
Oh yeah,
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so
you're gonna have no idea who's on here.
Yeah, so for officially, give me green.
I'm gonna put one in there, and I'm gonna put Freddie Adu in there.
Freddie Adu. Wow.
My buddy Dave is chiming in on my messenger because and he's on the green train as well.
Dave, my man.
You know Dave from MLS Soccer, so
he's right not to pick Beckenbauer because he's probably my favorite defender of all time.
Yeah, see, yellow needs another. Yellow doesn't need Modric and Xavi. You gotta pick somebody. They a different midfielder.
Yeah, I think this would be a fun way to wrap up most of our shows if we wanted to go this route and do something fun like that at the end.
Absolutely. Well, this is Stoppage Time FC. We're gonna play this one. We're gonna post this in the Facebook group. Share this with your friends. Solving the woes, not the woes, but if you're not into soccer, I think the Gio Reyna and the story of this. We always talk about it, man. Sports is the greatest reality TV show ever. And if there was it was reality TV, it is the Reyna Berhalter saga. Zach,